Check, check. Okay. Yeah.
Welcome back, ANL Nation. It's good to be with you again. We're excited to give you guys some more content to be able to chew on and see what you can get out of it. So we're excited to be here and be able to drop you with some truth bombs and hopefully be able to improve your lives today.
And hopefully give you something to think about.
Mind gum.
Yeah, mind gum. That's a nice
No
term.
one's come up with that. Has anyone come up with that?
I don't think I've heard that before.
Merch?
I like it though. Mind gum merch, question mark.
Or we'll just make our own gum line. That would be kind of cool.
That'd be good. Because most gum...
We make it not have as much sugar.
Yeah, and then all the sugar-free gums just have artificial sweeteners in them.
And then we can make it
good kinds.
Make it brush your teeth too. So then we don't have to brush our teeth.
That's amazing. That would be so nice.
Do you think we could actually do it? Like, can you make gum where you wouldn't have to brush your teeth?
I don't think anything beats brushing teeth, but there's some gums that clean your teeth pretty well. But I think brushing your teeth...
Because there's like those Listerine strips that like just wreck your mouth.
Those are awesome though. They just mint your whole mouth, clean your sinuses.
You're just like, holy crap, I've never felt like this before. And like you're like a little 6-year-old, and my dad always would have them at church. And
yeah.
I don't know. He always had them in his suit pocket, and he's like you know the watch dealers where they like pull out their suit jacket to the side, and he would be like, "Hey Carter, you want a Listerine strip?" And I would always know in my mind I'm gonna regret it, like as a little 6-year-old. But I was always like, "Yes, I want one." And I put it in my mouth, and all of a sudden you're like, and you like start crying.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah.
Brother Lansing in Richmond was it? Yeah, the young guy. He always had those.
Really? Did he offer you one?
Bro.
I never got one from him.
One time he took him out in church. He's like, Elders, do you want some? I'm like, yes.
You're like, I need some. I forgot to brush my teeth this morning.
7 mornings in a row.
Dang.
No, yeah, he would have them and give them to us. But anyways, so Carter and I were thinking about like different things that we could talk about, and one thing that came up was the principle, I guess you would say, the principle or subject of opposition in all things, and that's a huge subject, and we wouldn't be able to unpack even 5% of that whole subject in 30 minutes, but we do want to kind of how we did with the Leveling Up podcast, just chat about it and kind of surface level things, but kind of like set up for future conversations that will surely happen where we can dive a little bit deeper into it.
Yeah, I think that's something that, at least as we listened to our previous podcast and just kind of how we felt that went, like we both really, not that we didn't enjoy listening to our other ones, like we love our other podcasts and stuff like that, but we thought that one was especially good, and so we think that that we're going to try and use that format a little bit more often, of where we kind of explain a topic, kind of give you guys the basic introduction to it, and then as we feel prompted, or as we feel guided to dive deeper into certain categories, like we talked about leveling up, and this is obviously what we're talking about with opposition in all things is going to have a little bit to do with that, so that could kind of be a little subtopic, but obviously this is going to be a kind of its own thing of opposition in all thing, and we're going to try and explain it to you guys, give you a few things to think about, maybe give you some stories. We're going to try and work on our storytelling, and then just kind of leave it at that, and then as we feel like or experience different things, we'll talk about it more in depth.
Yeah, so I was just telling Carter yesterday, I was talking to one of my new coworkers. He's a kid from Alaska. He just moved to Utah a few months ago. And when I first met him, I could just tell he was like a really smart kid. And not that my other coworkers aren't smart. They all are. But I could tell he was like a really deep thinker like myself. And it was exciting to meet him, because I even said to him, like, the first day I met him, I was like, hey, man, like, I really look forward getting to know you better, because in my mind I was thinking like I'm going to be able to have conversations with this kid that I can't have with some of my other coworkers. You know, which is cool. I mean, I have other conversations with my other coworkers that I couldn't have with this kid, like about sports and stuff. But it was so yesterday after work, like at Tukio's company brings in lunch every Friday. So they catered Costa Vida yesterday. It was nice.
Can't complain about that.
Dude, it was nice. And then everyone just kind of hangs out, and then everyone hops on that like online video game. But Keelan and I just hung back in the conference room where we eat lunch, and we just started chatting, and we talked for almost 3 hours. It was crazy, like, and it just did not feel like 3 hours. But our conversation was all over the place. We were just thinking through different things, and I was giving him new points of views, and he was giving me new points of views and new things to look into and whatnot. But one thing that came up several times was opposition in all things. Just meaning, you know, life's unfair, and that's how it is, and that's how it always will be. There's always going to be inequality in any field of anything. And so I told him just about the Book of Mormon chapter.
Do you mind if I read the scripture?
I was going to say you should. Yeah. Verse 11.
Yeah,
I told him about it. So just to set up the story, it's Lehi is a prophet, and he's about to die. And so he's speaking to each of his sons, kind of giving them his last words or last counsels. And so he's speaking to Jacob, who's his oldest son in this chapter. And if you don't want to read this like at a religious standpoint, it's very philosophical, which that's what I told Keelan. I told him, you know, you don't have to look at this, and I don't mean this from a religious standpoint. I mean this from a philosophical standpoint. But then he said something that I loved. He said, well, religion and philosophy bleed together, at least in my opinion, is what he said. And I said, dude, I 100% agree. It's almost impossible to separate the two. Some people do. But anyways, so the chapter is great. It's really, really a deep principle that I think describes the way the world works.
Right. So just before I read the verse, I think verse 11 without verse 2 in my eyes doesn't make as much sense. And so I'll read verses 2 and verse 11. But so again, like Reiss was saying, this is Lehi talking to his son Jacob. And so he says, nevertheless, Jacob, my firstborn in the wilderness, thou knowest the greatness of God, and he shall consecrate thine afflictions for thy gain. So he sets the stage understanding that these hard times, that this opposition is going to be for our gain. It's not just to make our lives miserable. It's not to make our lives stink or unnecessarily hard, but that he's going to consecrate, meaning to set apart, to make better our afflictions for our gain. And then we read in verse 11, it says, for it must needs be that there is an opposition in all things. If not so, my firstborn in the wilderness, righteousness could not be brought to pass, neither wickedness, neither holiness, nor misery, nor good, nor bad. And then it goes on to talk about a little bit more like resurrection, stuff like that. But I think that's kind of the point that we're trying to get of that statement of there's opposition in all things, and without opposition, we wouldn't be able to know the good from the bad or the hard from the easy and things like that. So that's kind of the stage being set.
Yeah, and so, dude, I've read that chapter like 10 times in the past 2 weeks, and it's so deep. I feel like I'm just barely scratching the surface of what it's teaching, but and it's pretty difficult to understand. It's definitely like
it's a harder
college
chapter,
level.
yeah.
It's insane. It's like, but Keelan and I, the way our conversation started yesterday is, you know, he's from Alaska. I mean, they have beautiful mountains out there, but I was telling him about these mountains, and I'm like, you know what's fun is, like, I told him, I said, my favorite way to hike around here is, like, I tell people I like to hike, and they ask me what trails I like, and I don't know any, because that's not the way that I've hiked growing up. The way that I've always hiked is I just look at the faces of the mountains, or if I'm in the canyon, same thing, look at the faces of the mountains, and I think that would look cool. And so I park my car on the side of the road. I grew up in Logan, so I'd go up Logan Canyon, or I'd just do it on the facing the valley. Either way, park my car on the side of the road, so one of the pullouts, and then just go. You just hike up the mountain. And to me, that's like what I love. Trail hiking's cool
So
and
you're
stuff.
a trailblazer.
A trailblazer, man. Like I'll do trail.
Like Damian Lillard.
That's right. Oh man, Dame time. But go Jazz, man. Number one. I really hope they make it to the finals. I pray that they do.
That would be pretty crazy.
Because they've been the number one team in the NBA this whole season. So I just really pray they don't choke. Anyways, the Lakers aren't looking too hot. AD's out. Getting derailed.
LeBron posted 2 days ago that the storm is coming. So I think it was a picture of him and AD together on the sideline. So I think they could be coming back, but it would be hard to they've fallen in the standings. So, I mean, they're going to have to face harder teams earlier on. But
what are they, 4 or 5 now, seed? They went down,
They might be 6.
They might have gone down even again.
Watch them play the Jazz in the second round, and then that would stink for the Jazz to have to play the Lakers in the second round. But anyways, you can look that up. I'm looking it up. You can keep talking.
Okay.
Sorry.
So I was telling Keelan, I was like, I was going to finish my thought. I love doing trail hikes like at a national park or something, because those actually lead to cool things. But I love just trailblazing. So I was telling Keelan that I love to hike up the faces that are right by the valley. Did you find it?
Yeah, Jazz number 1, Lakers 5. So
Lakers 5, Suns are 2, Clippers
3, Nuggets 4, Portland 6.
Who's 7?
I think it was Dallas.
Yeah, I think you're right. Almost dropped your phone. Nice catch.
I just closed it down. I think it was Dallas.
Cool. Anyways, I was just talking to him. I was like, yeah, like you're going to love summer here. He was telling me he's excited for summer in Utah because summer in Alaska is pretty chilly. And anyway, so I was like, dude, like you got to do these hikes where you just go up the face, because as you're hiking up, at least in my experience, as you're hiking up the face of the mountain, and you turn around every once in a while and you're seeing the valley just get lower and lower as you get higher and higher, it feels like you're being pulled out of, he described it so well, but it feels like the consciousness that's down here, people sweating the small things, mad that they're in traffic, ungrateful, like all this, like I love Western society. There's so much good to it and so much to be grateful for about it, but everything has its opposition in all things. This is where the subject came up. I'm like, yeah, I love Western society. I love the city. I love how everyone goes to work every day and there's hustle and bustle, but it's a double-edged sword and there's opposition in all things. So there's a bad side to it where people are ungrateful, people complain, people don't have this large perspective of life, and they start getting really narrow-minded. And anyways, I was like, as you're climbing the mountain, you feel like you're being pulled out of that. I don't know if it matters, but it keeps the laptop wants to go to sleep. I don't know if it would still record. Probably would. I just don't want to risk it. We'll have to test that one day. But so I mentioned that to him, and then he brought up the internet, and he said, yeah, it's like this whole consumer mindset is the internet's pushing that, and the internet's pushing echo chambers, so people's ideologies are just getting strengthened and stronger. But then I was like, see, the internet's also a double-edged sword, because there's so much good to it, but there's so much destructiveness to it. And so that's where the subject came up of opposition in all things, because then we started talking about everything, and every single subject we brought up. We talked about how we could improve prison systems. We talked about how we could how the monetary system is going to collapse one day, and you should have stuff that won't lose value, like ammunition is actually a really good one. Precious metals could be a good one. But
Emerald in Minecraft.
If you're playing Minecraft, it's emeralds. you gotta go trade with the villagers. But so that's where the subject came up. But what I was gonna say is every single thing we talked about, opposition and all things applied to, because it's one of those building blocks of the way the world works. So anything you can think of, there's opposition in it. And then another thing I wanted to bring up, sorry, this is kind of all over the place, but another thing I thought of was Riley and I watched Messages from Heaven last night, which highly recommend. It's a true story. A little girl has an incurable, really rare disease where her intestines are paralyzed, so she can't digest food, and her stomach is always really bloated. It's like this little 10-year-old girl looks like she's pregnant. It's so sad. And she's always in tons of pain. And end of the story, like, spoiler, she gets healed miraculously. The doctors have no idea what the freak happened. Her intestines work perfectly. At the end of the movie, she eats pizza, like, as a celebration. It's like, anyways, it's really cool. But I was thinking, the bulk of the movie is her in pain, her throwing up, her in the hospital, her getting tubes shoved down her throat. Like, it's pretty gnarly and really sad. But then the last 15-20 minutes of the movie is her healing. And she looked so happy, and her family looked so happy, and I just had the thought so strongly, and the feeling, they would not feel that emotion, those elevated emotions, if they didn't go through the whole year of being in hospitals and her almost dying. And if there wasn't that opposition, those elevated emotions wouldn't have been felt. And so that's just an example of how it applies to everything. And I'm really grateful that there's opposition in all things, because that's part of the human experience. The human experience wasn't meant to be just coasting, happy. It was meant to have these ups and downs forever, you know?
Yeah. On my mission, just like one of my mottos for the whole 2 years was to enjoy the moment. Because like I would assume everyone that's served a mission or has even like gone on a mission, like when you first get out there, that weight of you're going to be out there for 2 years feels like 1 billion pounds. Like, it's not even funny. Like,
I had so much anxiety.
Like, you're just like,
of it. I was
like, you have all these happy moments, farewell, posting on Instagram, hey guys, I'm leaving, drop your emails down below, whatever, like these exciting moments. And then all of a sudden you're like, holy crap, I got to do this for 2 years. And I remember just trying to remind myself almost every single day to enjoy the moment for what it is. Like, get what you can out of this moment. Because, like, I don't know about you, but I'm always like, I mean, it's just how human nature works. But like, the grass is always greener. Like, as a missionary, when I was tracting, I would wish I was teaching a lesson, or when I was teaching a lesson, I wish that I was out tracting or whatever. You're always just like trying to get to the next thing. But I remember trying to teach myself that principle of trying to make the most of every moment. And then as I've come home, and obviously, like, it's not as centered on missionary work, trying to make the most of each moment, hard or bad, has made things a lot easier to get through, because I'm trying to make the most of that moment for what it is. Like, if it's a really stinky situation, I understand that, okay, like, I'm going to make the most of this moment, because it's going to make when I'm over it, it's going to make it so much more meaningful, instead of me just like sitting around not really making the most of it, or feeling the hard emotions, whatever it might be, because when you get to the other side, it's going to be a whole lot more meaningful. And so I don't know if that totally correlates to opposition in all things, but one of the ways that I've been able to at least somewhat wrap my head around, because it's hard, like what you said, like, it literally applies to everything.
Yeah,
so it's hard to wrap your head around, but that's what's kind of helped me.
No, yeah, and it's a subject that you can't. You have to think about it, and like, you have to deliberately think about it, not just, oh yeah, thought about it, but really ponder on it. And so it's kind of off track, but I do want to bring this up. The past year, I've really been learning what it means to think for yourself and to think things through. And it takes a lot of time. It usually takes...
Wait, you don't just trust what you read on the news and social media?
No. I just hate to break it to you. I don't.
What?
Yeah, it's weird. I started thinking for myself, and I transcended that. See, it's funny you say that.
But people do it.
But a lot of people do it, and the people who do it are the ones who would tell you that they don't do it. So they're completely blind to the fact that they're doing it. Like, I know somebody who has... Oh my gosh, there's so many things I want to talk about right now. Crap. Because, like, all or none is something that Keelan and I... The principle of all or none, it's like a psychological principle, I guess you could say, where it's well, if I'm not going to be in the church, then I'll be 100% out of it. Or if I'm not going to be a Christian, then I'm going to be an atheist. It's that type of mindset. Or if I'm not going to go to the gym if I can't go to the gym for an hour, then I'm just not going to go. I'm not going to. So it's like that thing. It's that
I think
concept.
that can be opposition to you succeeding. That's
like, okay, yeah.
It's your mind. It's your mind trying to get you to not do. I mean, we know it's the adversary, or it can be your mind, or it can be, your inner demon, whatever, trying to get you to not succeed. Is putting that thought into your mind.
Yeah. So see, you can.
It's everything.
You can put it into everything. So see, I wasn't even thinking about that, but it's true. So the all or none pattern is absolutely devastating for so many. But I know this kid who I didn't know him years ago. He's in Virginia. He would never listen to this. I know he wouldn't. Anyways, he grew up as a Protestant, really conservative. His father was extremely conservative, and like in my estimation, perhaps too conservative. But that's how he was. Like, church was everything, Jesus was everything. And now he is the 100% opposite. He's moving to LA once his lease is up. He's moving to LA. Why? Because that's all or none. If I'm not going to be Christian, then I'm going to move to freaking Demon City. But so, he's moving to LA. I
don't think we can call it the City of Angels anymore.
No. LA used to be so hype. That's where my parents got married. My mom's from about an hour, maybe 2 hours outside of LA is where she grew up, was born and raised. So, like, I love California, and, like, I have roots there, I have family there, and I'll always love it, and I'll always love visiting, but boy, it is sad what's going on. So, oh my goodness, I just never would want to live there. So the average rent in LA, I looked it up.
I guess.
Guess. The average rent in Los Angeles.
Just for everybody. So everybody in LA that pays rent, what it averages out to?
What's the average out to? So there's obviously a huge margin, but there's thousands of, probably hundreds of thousands that they've averaged.
I'm going to guess 2,500.
Yeah, that's about right. It was around 24, 25.
That's ridiculous.
That's the average rent. The average rent here right now is probably 12, maybe.
So half.
I think the nation average is around 12 or 13. So yeah, I don't know if it still goes. I think it's
still
okay.
Going. Okay.
Anyways,
keep an eye on it.
So it's just this principle of all or none. It's like, well, if you wanted to quit going to church, that's okay, but don't stop taking responsibility, and don't stop the values that you learned at church. I'm not saying you have to be a religious person still per se, but don't go fully opposite, because there's some other things that, are too personal to respect his privacy. I wouldn't share, but right. He's gone the opposite, like 100%. You think of a Christian, now think of the opposite. Now he's trying to be that. And it's like, well, there's some middle ground. You don't have to believe in Jesus anymore, which I don't recommend, but you don't have to, but at least still live by the values he taught, because I think we can all agree that the values Christ taught are good.
Pretty darn good.
Pretty darn good. I don't think there's much better, and it's like, so we were talking, Keelan and I were chatting about, man, this all or none thing is outrageous because people are doing it, and it's just insane. I don't even know why I brought this up. It just popped into my mind, and I just think it's important to think about.
Have we talked about like the pendulum, like kind of theory?
Maybe we brought it up, but
so I honestly don't remember. It might have been Sister Smith, my mission president before the Drew Bay's wife. I want to say it was her that brought it up, but I think it was like in an interview or something, was talking, or maybe his own conference. Anyways, I don't remember where it came up exactly, but where like missionaries will like get so entrenched, and this is just like building off of what you were saying on, like, let's say being obedient in like what's something I'm trying to
like
think.
a rule.
Yeah,
like a missionary rule.
Like a missionary rule. They'll get so entrenched in, like, let's say, like
30-minute lunch.
30-minute lunch,
which was hard to do sometimes if you made a lunch, because it would kind of take time to prepare.
Where they just get like so entrenched in this rule, and let's say like the pendulum is like swung all the way to the like far left, where you're just being like insane, like where it's 29 minutes 58 seconds, you're like already panicking because like it's gonna go, not like obviously like you need like be obedient and stuff like that, but where you're starting to sacrifice, like it's like 28 minutes, hey, let's, or 27 minutes, like where you're just like getting overboard. And then like, because that can be so
that would
overwhelming.
That would be a pendulum swing too far to the right, I would say.
Oh, too far to
too
the
much
right.
order, which can happen.
And then a lot of the times they'll just swing all the way to the other side, because it's really hard to find that pendulum to leave it in the middle. Because when you drop a pendulum from one side, it swings to the other. Like, that's just gravity, I think. Physics, I don't know.
Something
but
like some scientific.
They would go to
like
just,
that.
I don't care anymore at all. And so like for me, I just have had that in my life where I'm constantly thinking about where I'm at in the pendulum on exercising, or where I'm at in my schoolwork, where I'm at spiritually. Because like a lot of the times, like you have to be very conscious of it. Like you're saying, like with being understanding opposition in all things, you have to be very conscious.
Conscience or conscious?
Cautious.
Cautious. Oh my god.
You have to be very self-aware.
Yeah, there you go. That works.
Of where you're at. And I think like for me, the way that I do that is by thinking where I'm at on the pendulum, because you don't want to be too far swung to the left. You don't want to be too far swung to the right. You want to be in the middle. That's where we should be at. And so for me, that's been what's kind of like, I'm trying to think of an example from my life where, like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I can't think of any examples right now, but I'm trying to paint the picture.
Well, here, this may help. In high school, so we talked about this just earlier today, just for 2 seconds, but like perfectionism and all or none is a branch of, say perfectionism's a tree, all or none is one of the biggest branches off of it. So it's, in a sense, it's perfectionism. So perfectionism is almost human nature. Like, I don't think I've ever met somebody who doesn't have perfectionism, at least to some puny degree in some area of their life. Some people suffer from it. It debilitates them completely and they can't do anything. Other people, it's not so bad, but it kind of nags at them. And you have to work at it and be conscious of it and self-aware of it and be able to think things through and talk yourself through things. Anyways, perfectionism runs quite deeply in my family genes. And in high school, it's interesting. You can see my track record as a kid. I was doing really well. Grades were really good. Friend group was really good. I got in my car accident when I was 16, and it's interesting. I still haven't thought it all the way through. I haven't fully processed exactly what happened in my psyche, but when I went back to school that next year as a junior, I wasn't mad at God or anything. Never. For me, that just was never a struggle. Like, I watch movies and stuff where people get mad at God for an illness or an accident, and I can put myself in their shoes and see why they would be that way, but that was never a struggle for me because I've understood this principle of opposition and all things so deeply. I'm like, and anyways, I kind of went, my pendulum swung all the way to the left. So because I was trying really hard in church, and it was all or none. It was like, if I'm going to be in church, I'm going to be as perfect as I can. I'm going to do everything I'm told. And once that got too tiring,
because when you're on the super extreme side,
it's demanding.
You cannot keep it up.
No, you can't. It's not sustainable by any means.
Working out. It's
not sustainable.
Yeah.
You can maybe do it for 6 weeks and you're pretty much killing yourself by then. And so I swung all the way the other side, got the opposite friend group, and I love those guys and I'm grateful for my relationship I had with them. We had really fun times, but it's like I could have stayed somewhere in the middle. It's like I didn't have to fully jump off onto the other side. And now I realize that, and I can talk myself through it when I want to, when I feel the urge to like the pendulum to swing, because the all or none, I can talk myself through it and be like, okay, this is perfectionism I'm feeling right now. I don't have to jump all the way off if, you know, some church leader said this thing to me, or because that's what people do. Like, we talk to people who left the church on the mission. It's like, why'd you leave the church? It's like, oh, because sister so-and-so offended me at church. Like, so you left because of that? And it's like, you know, it probably goes a little bit deeper, but it's like, you left because of that, the whole thing? Like, all your whole religion that you cherished, you just left it all? So that's in high school. That happened to me like my junior year, man. I was just like a completely different kid than I ever was. My mom was like so shocked, like, who the freak is this kid? And then after being on too far, that wasn't sustainable. So then I was like, well, the only other option is to go right back to the whole pendulum swing to the right. Did that again. That wasn't sustainable. Did it, went all the way back to the left. Did that probably 4, 5, 6 times before I finally woke up and was like, okay, I can chill in the middle. And I'll kind of lean sides as I go along because I'm a human and I'm going to stumble, but I don't have to go extremist, you know?
So I'm trying to, because I think for me, like I'm kind of understanding this concept, but I want to try and find a way to explain like how people can figure out how to stay in the middle. So I guess my question for you, and I'll think about it as well, is like, what are some of the things you do to either talk yourself through that thought process of not trying to swing too far one way, trying to keep yourself centered and grounded in sustainable life principles? Like, what are some of the things that you have done to be able to kind of combat that thought process, or that just the human nature of wanting to swing really far one way or swing really far the other?
Yeah, so first off, one thing I wanted to mention was that I feel like you and I are using these, and I think this is great. We're using these podcasts as an opportunity to think deeper into subjects that we haven't really made time to think about. So forgive us if our thoughts don't completely make sense.
It's like
because
the missionary thing where it's like, I don't know, let me go research that and I'll get back with
exactly,
you.
Because it's like right now we're kind of just thinking out loud, trying to figure out what we really do think about this. So if it's kind of all over the place, that's why. But one thing that helped me was my mom. She was a great teacher and still is for me, but she told me that anytime first off, I have to become aware of my thoughts and emotions. So it starts there. It starts with awareness. And as soon as you become aware of an all or none thought, or you can feel like the pattern starting to arise. So it's like, oh man, I haven't been to the gym for a week. This just happened to me. I didn't go to the gym for a week. And I was like, I right now it's like second nature now. I just have the thought, oh, I haven't gone to the gym for a week. No biggie. I'll just start again this week. Like, no big deal. But the old me would have been like, oh crap, like freak. Now I just shouldn't work out, or I'll have to start in a month. Like, I'll have to start on a April 1st or May 1st, or
I'll just wait till January 1st.
January. So yeah, like you think you have to have like this perfect day to start. But anytime I would notice that, I would just say to myself, literally, like out loud, if I was alone, if you can say it out loud in public, but you might look weird. Just say, okay, this is perfectionism. This is all or none. I don't have to act this thought out. I caught it. I'm grateful I caught it, but I'm choosing, and that's important. You say, I am choosing not to act it out, and instead I'm going to do this. So it's like in the gym example, it's like, but I had to do this so consciously. I had to be so hyper aware of what was going on inside my head. But now it's just second nature, because I've just done it so much. Now it's just like I catch it and I'm like, oh, okay, I messed up. Not a big deal. I'm a human. I'd be surprised if I didn't mess up. That's what would be weird. Messing up's not weird. Not messing up would be weird. So it's like, okay, messed up, not a big deal. I can just start again, or just stop what I was doing, or start what I wasn't doing. And so I guess the main point is become aware of your thoughts, catch the thought when it comes into your mind, and then consciously think, okay, this is all or none, or this is perfectionism. I don't have to act it out. I am choosing to do this instead. That's the language you should use, or at least closely use that type of language. And after a year of doing that, you're not even going to be thinking about it, and you're just going to do it. And then 2 years after, it's just going to be an unconscious program you run that anytime perfectionism comes up, boom, no big deal. I'll do this. So I hope that makes somewhat sense.
It's kind of crazy because, like, as soon as I asked the question, then you started talking, like, my thoughts started formulating on my experience. Because, like, obviously, like, I'm not perfect, but I feel like for most things in my life, I have a pretty good handle on the pendulum. Like, they might be a little left or a little right, but for the most part, I don't feel like I'm on the extreme of anything. And I feel like I'm in a good place. And I was thinking about, like, how I got there and some of the things that I did. And then as you started talking, it was like, oh, yep, I do that. I do that. But it's so, one of the crazy things to me is like how a lot of the principles that like you explain or that you've found out have come from like, I don't even know, like it comes from your mom. It's just like kind of who you are or like the books that you read and like you come to it and you get to one place and like I'm over here and I'm like, just like kind of like guessing and hoping and like I feel like I'd end up doing like the same things but we get to or we're not the same things, we do it in a different way but we get to the same place. Because like as you were talking about being able to like figure out your thoughts and stuff like that, I can't remember when I started doing it. I was actually probably why it's so fresh in my mind is because I was just talking to my good friend about it. They were asking me like how like they'd asked me like what like emotions or things like that I had struggled with in the past or like anxieties or stuff like that, and I was like, yeah, like I've had struggles with that in the past, but like right now like it's really not even like that big of a deal because I want to say it started like right before we became companions, so it's probably been like a year and a half, 2 years. Dude, or whatever.
That's like 2 years ago.
Are you serious? I don't know, we probably met 2 years ago because doing the weird friend date.
Did we meet
thingy.
In May?
Yeah, that's crazy. What
years.
The heck? That's kind of weird. But I remember I started praying for the gift of discernment to be able to know when thoughts were from God and when thoughts were from Satan. Just because of that perfectionism in my brain of like not being able to know, like, I don't know, like, you get like weird promptings to be like, go run across the side of the street and do a backflip. I don't know, whatever. Like you just get weird promptings. And like, I was like, I really want to figure out, when something is from God and when something is from the adversary. And it's something I pray for almost every single night to be able to discern those thoughts. And so like for me, I feel like I've been blessed with the ability to, over time, like you said, like I've been doing it for, 2 years. You said after a year, it just becomes second nature where like I was telling my friend, I was like, honestly, like it gets to the point where within like 1 second, I know where the thought came from, whether it was from God or whether it was from the adversary. And I feel like for me, that's been able to help me balance like that pendulum, because I think Satan wants you to swing to one side or the other. Like he doesn't want you to be in the middle, and God is going to be there to help center you and set boundaries for yourself. That was the other thing I was going to say is like setting realistic boundaries for myself has been probably the biggest help to be like, okay, I know I can work out at least an hour a day. I know I can study 30 minutes a day, whatever it might be. Like I know I can say 2 prayers a day. Like things like setting those realistic boundaries. And then when I feel bad for like, oh, you only worked out for an hour today, like seriously, dude, it's like, no, like I know that's what I'm capable of. Like obviously like you can do more than that, but like I think those are kind of been the 2 main things for me, is figuring out where the thoughts have come from and then setting realistic boundaries. That's
cool. I like that principle. And the first thing I wanted to mention, as soon as you said we've gotten to the same place, just a different way, that is, I guess you could say, an eternal principle, because when my mom and I went to a seminar last year, to the Kirk Duncan one, 3 Key Elements is the company, but at one part of the seminar, I think it was the last day, he had like 30 volunteers come up and they lined up and there's a stage, and then he said, all right, we're going to play a game. Here's the rules. You have to go from, he had tape on the ground. He said, you have to go from, and over across the stage, you have to go from this point, this piece of tape to this piece of tape. But every single person, all 30 of you have to do it in a different way. So the first guy, he just walked across. The second person walked backwards. One kid did cartwheels across the stage. Another kid skipped. One guy hopped like with both feet, like a potato sack type hop. Um, I don't know if I think someone might have done like the worm across. And after all 30 did it, it was funny. Everyone was like cheering. They were playing like super loud music when I was doing it. And then he said, okay, why would I have people come up here and go across the stage in a different way? Every single person, that was the rules. If someone skipped, then you couldn't skip anymore. And he said it's to illustrate the point that we are going to live life our own way. And we all abide by certain rules to the game. And it's just like, we just know the rules of the game in society. It's like, you just know it. But we all get through life differently, and different things work for us, like what works for you might not work for me, and vice versa. And so, but it's just important to share what's worked for you, because that'll resonate with somebody, but I think that's important to remember. You don't have to be like somebody else, and if that's not working for you, then stop and find what does work for you. And
because like I feel like for me, like if you would have told me, before my mission I would be have a podcast talking about self-help, I would have said that was the dumbest thing you've ever heard. Like, because to me, like, that stuff was kind of weird before, and so like God needed me to figure those things out through another avenue, whereas you probably were more humble and being like, also probably helped that your mom like had grown up like kind of instilling some of those principles in you. And so like we both like went different ways to the same destination.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the more I've thought about, so the cliche of don't compare yourself to anybody but yourself. It's so cliche, but why is it cliche? Because I think I pointed out to you one day, I just was thinking, I'm like, if it's cliche, there's a reason it's cliche. It's because it is so true. It's stood the test of time. So you should never shirk off a cliche. You should think about them because they're important. And so I was thinking about that cliche. And it's so plainly obvious, but the more you think about it, the more obvious it gets that comparing yourself to other people is absolutely stupid, because their life has been completely different than yours. Everyone's. If you're a twin, your twin brother or sister, their life has been completely different than yours. There's no comparison at all. And there's only one person who's lived your life, and that's you. And so you can only compare yourself to you. And that's the only comparison that makes sense. And so I just was thinking about that. The more you think about it, you're just like, dang, like, why do I? And then when you do start comparing yourself to others, you can just catch it so fast and be like, bruh, that's so stupid that I'm doing that, because they're completely different than me. And then one other thing I wanted to bring up was in sales, it's really important that you underpromise, overdeliver. So like in pest control, for some reason, I get it. People, if we serviced their home, like sprayed their home with the pesticides and stuff, in 15 to 20 minutes, they thought that the service wasn't done, and they thought that the technician took shortcuts, which he didn't. He did the whole home. But if the technician walked around slowly and took 40 minutes, we got better reviews. So it was weird. And so I would say on the doors, when I would sell people, yeah, the technician will come by tomorrow. He'll just take 20 minutes or so. He can get the whole thing done in about 20 minutes. And yeah, like then he'll be good. He'll be on his way. He won't be in your hair or anything, so no worries. You don't even have to be home. And then I would text the technician and say, hey, take 30 minutes on this house. Like, walk around the house slower if you need to, dig around in the truck if you need to, like, just take 30 minutes on the house.
Pretend to take a phone call.
Yeah, literally just take longer on the house. And then so the tech comes, he takes 30 minutes on the house, and in the person's mind, they're like, wow, he took an extra 10 minutes than the salesman told me to. That means he probably did a better job. So it's just like a psychological thing.
He's going to do it in 1 minute.
He's going to do it in actually probably 45 seconds at most.
Wow, he's been out here for 45 minutes. He's doing a good job.
He's amazing. Anyways, so that principle, I like how you brought that up. I hadn't even really thought about it that way, but under promise, over deliver for yourself. Like, all right, I just need to work out for 15 minutes a day, and then go to the gym. Most likely you're going to work out for 20 to 30. And then you're like, dang, I just like surpassed it. And then do that for a month and then be like, all right, 20 minutes. I'm just going to work out for 20 minutes and then see where that goes. And then, so it's like, you can do that with anything. It's like I've been waking up in the morning to work out, been changing it to the mornings. And I had this thought the other morning where I woke up and I got home from the gym. Like, I left at 5:50, 5:45-ish, got home around 6:45-ish, and I was going to make like a big shake with like greens and fruit and stuff, but I just like wasn't feeling it. And I was like, that's okay. Like, I don't have to, it's the pendulum. I don't have to do this perfectly. Like, I can just drink a little protein shake today for the next week until I'm back in the groove of working out in the mornings. Then I can add some spinach to it. And then in 2 weeks, then I can add some more greens to it. And so it's like the principle of just incremental, tiny little baby steps. That's another cliche that you should really listen to. By small and simple things are great things brought to pass, because it's really, really true. So it's like, yeah, do things your own way. Take baby steps. Be grateful for the opposition. But yeah, I'm just kind of thinking out loud, but just some things that have been on my mind lately that I think are really good to think about.
Yeah, I think my like at least kind of like my final thought on this is like, when you like, it's, I don't know, at least for me, sometimes like I'll look at people and be like, dude, like, why are you doing, this is probably like more for me, but like when you kind of understand that everyone is going through life a different way, and obviously like there's better ways than others, like probably totally
better ways,
but it's hard sometimes when you like look at someone and you judge them for the way that they're going about their life when you might not feel like that's the best way. I think it's important, this is just like, I guess, advice for me, I'm saying out loud to hold myself accountable, but I think most of us probably do it, where you see someone working out, or they don't eat the same as you, or they have a different spiritual belief than you, like you kind of are just prone to judgment, being like, oh wow, they're doing things weird. But when you understand that people with good intentions are going to end up in the same place, like, for the most part. And so like for me, I think it's like important, like, while we need to understand like there are right and wrong ways to go about living life, but to be open and understanding of other people's like way that they're doing it. Like, I think that's something that I wasn't really open to before my mission. It was like, this is my way, this is how I do it, and it works for everybody, and it doesn't. And so I think trying to be understanding and open to not only learning, but just letting people kind of live their own life and kind of do it in their way to be able to reach their goals. But I don't know if that really makes much sense.
No, that makes a ton of sense. And I think, like you said, that's a message for everybody. For me, for sure. It's easy to criticize people for the way they do life, but they're completely different than me. So I don't.
That's just an opposition to God trying to get you to not like someone or to have negative feelings towards them or whatever it might be. It's just opposition in all things.
So it's like, recognize that, let people be them, and so opposition in all things. That kind of talked about it.
Kind of.
But think about it. Read 2 Nephi chapter 2 and watch The Giver, man. Have you seen that? I asked you about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, watch
I read
The
the
Giver.
book in like 5th grade.
It's on Amazon Prime for free, yo.
Okay.
Watch it. It's so good. It explains opposition on all things so starkly. Is that a word?
I think so.
Plainly.
Riley, is that a word? Starkly? Yeah.
Okay, I thought it was a word because I know stark's a word.
Yeah, it sounds right.
Pull up that music.
All right. Well, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate it. Please let us know if there's anything we can do for you guys. We'd love to set up a time to call and chat with you, whether it's physical, spiritual, emotional, just try and help you out in a sense of whether it be mentoring or whether it just be support and trying to help you reach some of the goals and obtain the things that you want in your life. But we will see you guys later.
Outro.